You might have picked up that over the next 4 weeks we're going to spend the next 4 weeks in the book of Jonah, and you probably have the same question I did when I asked God that, and that was like, how would it be a good idea to preach the book of Jonah and the series A Whale of a Christmas, as obscure as that seems during Christmas? And I guess just to let you know, there are 4 messages in this series. There are 4 chapters in Jonah, and I want to suggest are 4 significant big invitations at the heart of God for us to celebrate this Christmas about what is God like, about what is He on about what is His heart for humanity, and what is He inviting us to join Him in. This morning's first invitation to Jonah is simply this, to embrace the idea and to join him on his mission. Now, that's going to ring out pretty badly. So, anyway, now look, just to confront the elephant in the room or the whale in the room in this scenario, most of us are educated people, right? We have some sort of brain, at least some level of intellect going on there. And many of us are probably sitting there going with the question, what does a story about a guy tossed overboard in a storm, swallowed by a whale, spat up on a beach, surely it sounds more like a fairy tale than something that fits in the Bible. And yet, like, is this really what God does to people when He plucks them out of obscurity and puts them on mission? And do you really expect us to believe this is true? Now, I'm not going to tell you how you should think about it, but I will tell you this. Jesus clearly viewed this event as a real event. And He said so in Matthew chapter 12. He was approached by some people who I guess had questions about His authority and His lordship, and they demanded that He show them some signs, I guess, to authenticate his identity. And what He said was, only an evil generation would demand a miraculous sign. The only sign I will give them is the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was in the belly of the great fish for 3 days and 3 nights, so will the Son of Man be in the heart of the earth for 3 days and 3 nights. The people of Nineveh stand up against this generation on Judgment Day and condemn it, for they repented of their sins at the preaching of Jonah, and now someone greater than Jonah is here, and you refuse to repent. Jesus clearly uses the story of Jonah here to essentially describe what He is going to do. That he would do the miraculous. He would die for our sin. He would be buried for 3 days. He would rise again. All right? So if Jesus, who is the cornerstone of our faith and the centerpiece of everything we believe, reckons that Jonah is true, there's probably a good chance we probably should as well. Okay? Now let's talk this morning about mission. Here's what we need to talk about mission this Christmas. That the call to join God's mission is I reckon perhaps one of the ultimate answers to the question, what on earth am I here for? Christmas tells us that there is a God in the person of Jesus who enters our world on our level, who is real, who is relational, and who is powerful. And this God, this real and relational God, has a plan and a purpose and an outcome for humanity that He is trying to bring us to, rather than to leave us broken the way we are. His message is not, go live your best life, have a great time, and I'll be over here doing my God stuff. It is you are not a mistake. It is you are not an accident. You are not an add-on to history. You are an essential part of what I'm trying to do in the world. That is our role as God's people. We're not here by mistake. We're here today for a reason. You won't find your purpose, and you won't find your meaning, and you won't find all those things in figuring it all out yourself. Just pursuing your own interest or whatever else. You will find it, the Bible says, when you come into a relationship with Jesus, and when you surrender and bring your life into line with what God is trying to accomplish in the world. Now, in the words of Lauren Cunningham and a whole bunch of others, it's as simple as this. You are here to know God and to make him known. First thing just to mention this morning, all of us are called to a life of mission. The only question is whether we will step in to whatever God's trying to do with us. For Jonah, the invitation is go to Nineveh, hit them with the message of my judgment and maybe my forgiveness if they're lucky, if they respond. Proclaim the message faithfully, leave the rest to me. It wasn't go, set up everything. It was the invitation was specific to a point, to a location, to a situation in time, and it was specific to him. All right? And let me just say this. If God gives you some sort of call like that is specific to a location, that is specific to a person, and it's specific to you, then I'm not sure you should be here right now. Okay? But staying where you are is not an option, if you want me to say it plainly. Okay? But for many of you, this regional community where we are today is, at this time in our culture, in this time in our history as a nation, is where God has put you right here, right now, for his mission. And the call is not to attend church and hear inspiring sermons, although there's nothing wrong with those things, all right? It is to look to embrace, it's not to look to embrace something huge overseas and something that's going to put me up on a pedestal. But to embrace your role in this community right here, right now, to see more of heaven come to earth. Now, please don't mishear me here. I'm not going to offend anybody, but I need to say this, okay? I love the fact that we are a generous church, and we should be a generous church, yeah? I love the fact that we have had a role in missions, and we send people out on missions, and the fact we have a great amount of money committed to missions is a really, really good thing, and we can point to a whole heap of people who we have equipped and sent, and that's a great thing. Everyone okay? Okay, and we should do all of those things, okay? But it is one thing to give generously to somebody else doing something else somewhere else, and it's another thing completely, I want to say, to be willing to surrender my claim on my life, to be able to surrender all I am and all I hope to be, and bring my families and my business and my career and my workplace and my personal interests and my share portfolio and my church, dare I say it, and whatever else, and I seek to bring that into line with where God is going. That's the call for us to live on mission, okay? To bring all we have into alignment with what God is trying to accomplish. God has a specific plan and purpose for you in this moment, right here, right now. He has a calling for you to be part of this community and to serve him in some capacity. And the question is, are we willing to step into it? Are we willing to embrace the invitation to live on mission, not somewhere else, but where we are today? Now, when God calls, the most obvious point, like Jonah, is to expect there are challenges and dangers all over the place, isn't there? If you read, if you've been watching the reading, or you maybe even look at the map up on the screen there, God is trying to invite Jonah to follow a little red arrow that goes from there to there. What's Jonah do? Jonah tries to follow a little blue arrow that goes from there to there. Yeah? Okay. Now we can sit here and critique Jonah. But let's just forget something. Let's just remember something. We are sitting in a place of relative safety. We're sitting in a place of relative predictability where everything's good, and most of us are used to being here a lot of Sundays. Yeah? But the place where Jonah is being called to is not like here. The place where Jonah is being called to go is not safe, it is not predictable, and it is not comfortable. It's something way, and even worse than this, God's people in Israel, which is, let's just say us, and the people out here in Nineveh have been having stoushes and fights forever. This is not a state of origin, Queensland versus New South Wales sort of thing, where you just get together for a couple of fights once every year, and you just go home with a trophy and everything's good. This is probably more like the equivalent of a Jew from Poland walking into the middle of Germany in the middle of World War II, or in today's language, somebody from Ukraine walking into Russia, saying to the leader of that community, "Turn from your wicked ways." How do you reckon that would go down? I want to suggest to you it could go spectacularly well, or it could go really, really badly. And there is every chance that old Jonah is not going home. Is there any wonder that he's so hesitant to do what God says? Living on mission has always had a radical cost. But it's the place where you find life, believe it or not. It is the place where you find life. Because Jesus said, if any of you want to be my follower, you must be ready to give up your own way, take up your cross, follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for me and for the sake of the good news, you will save it. And there's that last little line there that just freaks everybody out. And I should read it, shouldn't I? What do you benefit if you gain the whole world and lose your soul? The second thing that Jonah clearly has not got here, right now, is a passion and a heart to see people receive God's forgiveness and be changed by it. Okay? He seems very, very hesitant to go, I think in part because God may well forgive them and he doesn't want that to happen. Can I share something just to bring that idea back to a modern level? Can I just share something? It's been my observation, probably in my however many years of growing up, that as the world has become more self-absorbed a little bit, Christianity has moved from a faith that was collectively lived and collectively accepted and believed by a whole community. And you notice how today it's almost like just being shoehorned into you can have a faith, it's got to be personal, and it can be whatever it needs to be, but don't involve me in it. That's essentially the message we hear in today's world. And the tragedy is, on some level, that the church have gone along with this. Now, the Barna Group in the US did some research this is research in the Christian community a couple of years ago. Okay, that found between 95 and 97% of Christians thought that people meeting Jesus was the best thing ever. And I reckon I'm a little surprised there's not 100 of that. Like, whatever, that's fine. The really difficult thing to capture was in the same survey. Half of those Christians thought it was wrong to try to convince somebody else of a different faith or no faith that they should meet Jesus. I look at those two graph things and they just don't make sense to me. Those figures don't I'm no maths genius, but those figures don't add up. And I want to suggest that what this leads to, and the danger of what this leads to, is a church today that loves to hear the message about Jesus and how wonderful Jesus is and how Jesus changes people, but they never actually let it transform us to the point that we see it change anybody else. I want to tell you this morning, the Western church has to begin praying for a deep burden to see others transformed by Jesus. Not just to be happy to love people in the church, although we should do that as well, but to love the people outside the walls of the church even more. We spent the last couple of weeks, by the way, talking about spiritual warfare, and I guess the very presence of what that is in our world and how to respond and standing firm and praying and all that sort of stuff. There's one statement that didn't work its way into any of those sermons that really has haunted me a little bit. It's this, that the greatest damage the church can do and inflict, God willing, is to see people pulled from the kingdom of darkness and drawn into the kingdom of light. And if that's true, and if that's what we're here for, and if that's what we're about, that requires a radical willingness on our part as a church to embrace God's mission deeply, let it transform us deeply, and put it well ahead of a whole heap of other things that we've done for a whole heap of long time. And it's hard to do that, isn't it? It's hard to do that. Now, don't expect life as it is to make the mission easy. I think the kids gave us almost the greatest illustration of this morning, and they were thinking almost the same thing that I was thinking in that video before. Maybe one of the greatest challenges to a life on mission is a life crowded by so much else. Yeah, I made that video in a moment of clarity down at the park, just on a Friday morning when I knew I had a busy day, and it just felt like the right thing to do at the right time. At the same time, noticing that everything around me is screaming for attention, and the pace just hadn't slowed down. Now look, while we can agree that Jonah probably didn't do the wrong thing, and while he travelled in the wrong direction and all that sort of stuff, I've got to give Jonah at least credit for one thing. He at least heard God's voice and did something about it. All right? And which means that even though he is in a world that's surrounded by activity and noise, there is a space in his life somewhere for God to speak to him. And I just want to say to you this morning that we are about to celebrate one of the greatest periods of the year, to celebrate that there is a Saviour, that he entered our world, that the Christmas carol, that I don't really understand all these words sometimes, but this one just says, let every heart prepare him room. He didn't just enter the world, he came to enter you. He came to live in here. He came to be part of you. And this God who entered earth wants to be a part of your life. And that regardless of where you've been, and regardless of how much you've messed up, and regardless of what you've been carrying, and regardless of what you deserve in your life, this promise is still radically true. Let me just read it for you. To all who believed and accepted him, that is Jesus, he gave the right to become the children of God. Wow. Wow. Did anyone just read that and go, that's nice? No! That option is not open to us. To all who believed and accepted him, if you let him in, he gives the right to become. You don't have to be lost anymore. You don't have to try hard anymore. You don't have to have this anymore. You don't have to have the tree and all of this stuff. All you need is him. All you need is him. And it is so easy in this period of life, I think, to zoom through this period of life, clouded by every event on the calendar, by every tree, by every commitment, by every good thing. And let me just, there is no guilt here. Everyone okay? Because I had a sleep in yesterday morning, went to a Young at Heart lunch yesterday, ate very well, went to Amanda's Christmas party last night for work, ate very well again. It's been it's a busy week and there's a lot of food involved. And I'm not suggesting any of that is bad, all right? I need to have a diet again. But if we are not careful, all those good things become more important than the best thing, which is to rest and truly experience the reason for the season, which is the person of Jesus himself. Can I just invite you this Christmas, whatever it looks like and whatever you've got on and whatever stuff you've got to navigate, just as best as you can, give away the clutter, give away the complexity, give away the busyness, and no pressure. No pressure, because I know all of us have had one of those weeks, okay? But commit yourself to the awe and the wonder and the worship and the time in his presence and the place where he can speak. Because otherwise you miss the whole thing. Let me just finish very quickly by saying this. God has a use for everybody. Wherever you are, wherever you've been. See, when you start talking about invitations to mission, what Christians often seem to start thinking of is that there's a really condemning, loud voice in their head that says, you never do enough for God. God wants more of this. He's not happy with that. He needs me to do that. I wish I'd done that. I've got all these regrets. That is not the voice of God. Please hear that, okay? It is the voice of an enemy who is trying to guilt you into something you can do in your own strength and get disillusioned about when you fail. In a church, there is always more we can do. There's always probably even more we should do, okay? But God is not after people who with that nagging voice in their head who are always driven to something bigger and better. God is after ordinary people who are walking with him, who see an invitation to join God in moments of opportunity, and who are willing to say yes. That's all he's after. Okay? Despite the fact that it's an inconvenience, despite the fact that it never happens at the right time, despite the fact that it never fits me perfectly. He's just after people who say yes. I just see so much hope and joy and grace in this last verse of today's passage, which says this, that the Lord had arranged for a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah had to sit inside this fish and rethink his life, didn't he? Notice that nothing in your life is ever wasted. No part of your life and no part of your existence when it comes to God is a waste. No part of your life today is considered just an accident. God's not trying to guilt Jonah into anything. He doesn't need his help. But he provides moments like this to make him think and to slow him down, to invite him close, to see the opportunity and to come join me. That's what he's after. He's not after people who are full of themselves. He's after people who are empty that he can fill. Yeah. And the message of Christmas is this. God in the person of Jesus comes close to each of us. He gives us moments like this where he invites us to stop running and stop ruling our own life, to stop living a life and chasing a life that's busy and crowded and self-absorbed. He invites us instead to come join his mission, to come give me your all, come give me what you've got and let me use it for my glory and for my mission. God's very DNA is that he loves to use ordinary people for his mission, despite our limitations, despite our failures. But he can only use people who can say yes. And given God saw fit to, in this moment, give Jonah a time to stop and think, maybe it's time for us to stop and think this Christmas, eh? In fact, let's start Christmas the right way with the right spirit and start it right now. Can I invite Kevin to come lead us in prayer?